ABC News tasked with burrowing down the rabbit hole of bizarre and dangerous conspiracy theories, emerging today with the latest strategy from anti-vax and QAnon-aligned folk, just in the form of something called paper terrorism. And here's the deal. Groups of parents across the country who oppose COVID mandates in their kids' schools are launching this barrage of phony legal fights against their district's insurance policies. It's led to scenes like the one we're about to show you. Parents showing up to schools with boxes of legal documents, legal paperwork. Watch.
We're here as parents because they won't listen to us. We have done everything we possibly can. We've spent nearly $1,000 to print documents that we have to serve you, to ask you to please look at these things.
The hope? The schools will lose federal funding to pay for the lawsuits. The only problem for some of these parents, the legal claims are founded in, you guessed it, misinformation and conspiracy theories that add up to a whole lot of nothing. I want to bring in NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins. Ben, explain this whole thing. Paper terrorism, who's behind it, what's going on, where it came from.
Sure. So paper terrorism is this word that came up during the 90s from the sovereign citizen movement. Basically, there was this group called the Montana Freemen that didn't want to be part of the United States anymore, even though they're in Montana. So they started inundating anybody who questioned their sovereignty with a bunch of fake lawsuits, citing things like the Nuremberg Code or what they believed to be superseding law. The lawsuits didn't mean anything. They were completely useless lawsuits. But that tactic has stuck with QAnon believers and anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers recently. And what they're saying is, when they go and they hand off these papers, is that you're teaching CRT, or your books are promoting pedophilia, all these sort of QAnon sort of things. Therefore, we can sue for liability insurance, and we will bankrupt the school board. We'll bankrupt some of these people personally. And this has happened in 14 states so far. These people are very scared. School board members are really scared when these people come by because these look official. They cite things they believe to be real laws, and they have to bring in lawyers into it and all this stuff. The point of it is not to win the lawsuit because they get thrown out. In fact, they probably don't even appear before court. But the point of it is to intimidate people into just changing the rule they don't like, into banning the book they don't like before anything ever gets to court.
They're piling up what one group called a forest of paper for school officials here. What do they think is going to happen coming from that? And the school districts, as you point out, still have to manage, even if it's all, based on, as you say, nothing, based on useless information. The school districts still have to manage that, no?
Yeah, they have to deal with all this stuff just as if it's real, right? Because they don't know. This is an individualized thing. And it's coming from, by the way, it's coming from these Telegram groups called Bonds for the Win. And they have local individualized chapters. 14 different states, like I said, have been targeted by this group. It's led by a flat earther named Mickey Clan, who believes AIDS is a hoax. She teamed up with this guy named Ron Watkins, who is most likely Q from QAnon. He runs 8chan. Mm-hmm. And they pulled this off in Scottsdale, and they provided this video that they were like, this is successful. This is winning. They provide what they believe to be success stories of them bringing these things, and then the mask mandate is lifted. But that mask mandate had nothing to do with their phony lawsuit. So they have what they believe to be a winning strategy here. The only way it's really winning is just scaring a bunch of people who don't know that this is all fake.
Ben Collins behind that story up on NBCnews.com now. As always, Ben, mandatory reading for folks interested in your beat. Appreciate you being on and talking us through it. So it's been about, a year since former President Donald Trump was kicked off his favorite social media platforms for spreading lies about the 2020 election. But now he's trying to get back in the game. Overnight, we saw that new app from his company, Truth Social, launching in the Apple App Store with some software bugs, pretty big wait list, apparently, making it just a little less seamless to use than, like, Twitter, for example. The app is supposed to be a space for so-called free speechers who say the more mainstream platforms are muzzling their voices. But as you might imagine, critics say that this could be a proving ground for misinformation. I want to bring in NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark, setting aside the bugs, the tech issues that this app seems to have had on its rollout on Apple, there's also the broader issue, right? The reason Donald Trump hasn't been on Twitter for the last year, just about, is because he lied a lot and said things that were dangerous and not true. It is very unlikely that those same checks are going to exist on his own platform, right, that he is behind. Should people be concerned about the danger of more misinformation spreading and more lies coming from Donald Trump?
Yeah, Hallie, the question is really how much that information, that misinformation ends up getting amplified on this new social media app. I mean, as you and I know really well, one of the powers of Twitter is that you end up having tens of millions of people who get your information or who can actually see your tweets or messages. And that includes not only people on your side, but also Democrats and journalists. And that's how something ends up going viral. And so when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016 and then became president from 2017 to 2020, tens of millions of people end up getting the tweets and all that information. It remains to be seen whether this new app is going to really pack that same kind of punch on that misinformation front. And Hallie, we're already getting statements from the former president repeating a lot of those misstatements. They're just not going anywhere. They're going to reporters and to like-minded Trump supporters, but they're not spreading elsewhere.
You have a theory, Mark, about how Mr. Trump losing his social media megaphone has affected his standing in the party. Walk us through it.
Yeah, Hallie, the theory is when we look at our NBC News poll that shows that the number of Republicans who identify themselves more as party supporters rather than Trump supporters has gone up. And while the number of Trump supporters has gone down at that same amount of time. And what's actually happened in the past year? The former president of the United States does not have access to social media, to Twitter, to Facebook, to YouTube, and sometimes like not being seen and out of sight and out of mind, you might have less of a pull with your supporters and your party than you once might have.
And yet, Mark, there's, I know, some discussion out there about will that really hold if Donald Trump does decide to run for president? You look at what we heard from Republican Senator Tim Scott, for example, just in the last 24 hours saying, hey, you know, everybody wants to be on the Trump bandwagon, if you will. And I'm paraphrasing that. Things may change.
Things may change, particularly if the former president decides to run again. And that goes back to that out of sight, out of mind. If he runs for president, Hallie, he becomes quickly in mind and in sight.
Yeah.
And if you are a Tim Scott, the Republican senator from South Carolina, or anyone else, of course, you'd want to be one heartbeat away from the presidency in a very close 2024 presidential election where Donald Trump would be the odds-on favorite to get the Republican nomination. And so I do think that his power, the more that he is seen as if he is running or does run, he has more sway with his party than not running.
Mark Murray, thank you very much for that. And thanks to all of you for watching another busy hour of this show. Deadline White House starts right now.